"There's a recorder in your office." The whisper was so soft it barely disturbed the air. Dominic Russo's fingers froze over the documents spread across his mahogany desk. Classified documents, shipment routes, weapons manifests, the kind of papers that could bury him for 3 lifetimes. He looked up slowly. A little girl stood in the doorway. 6 years old, maybe 7. Tiny frame, drowning in a faded dress 2 sizes too big, a dust rag clutched in her trembling hands. The housekeeper's orphan. He'd seen her around the mansion, always in corners, always silent, always invisible. Until now. Dominic leaned back in his leather chair, studying her with the cold precision of a man who had learned to read threats in the smallest gestures. His jaw tightened. "Do you know who you're talking to, little girl?" His voice was ice, the kind of voice that made grown men stammer and sweat, the kind of voice that had ended negotiations and ended lives. The child flinched. Her small body trembled like a leaf caught in a winter wind, but she didn't run. "Under your desk," she whispered again, her voice shaking but steady. "I saw Miss Serena put it there yesterday afternoon. When you were downstairs." Dominic felt something twist in his chest. Not fear. Men like him didn't feel fear. But something close, something sharp. Serena, his fiancée, the woman who slept beside him every night, the woman who would become Mrs. Russo in 3 weeks. He let out a short, humorless laugh. "You expect me to believe that?" He stood up, and the girl took an instinctive step backward. "Who sent you? Who told you to say this?" "Nobody sent me, sir. Liars get punished in this house. I'm not lying." Her voice cracked, but her eyes held his. Brown eyes. Too old for her face. "Mrs. Eleanor says hiding things in someone's room is bad. I didn't want you to get hurt." Dominic stared at her for a long moment. In his world, children were pawns, tools, weapons used by enemies to plant doubt, to create paranoia, to destroy from within. Trust no one. His father's voice echoed from the grave. Especially information from unexpected sources. "Your enemies will use anyone, even children. Get out." The words came out flat, final. "Don't let me see you around here again." The girl lowered her head. She turned to leave, dust rag still clutched against her chest like a shield. But at the doorway, she paused, just for a heartbeat. She looked back at him over her shoulder. That look, not accusation, not fear, something else, something that looked almost like sadness, sadness for him. Then she was gone, small footsteps fading down the corridor. Dominic sat back down heavily. He picked up his pen, tried to focus on the shipment routes, the contact names, the delivery schedules. The words blurred. His eyes drifted downward, toward the shadow beneath his desk, toward the darkness he suddenly couldn't ignore. He didn't believe her. He couldn't believe her. Believing a 6-year-old orphan over the woman he was about to marry was madness. But Dominic Russo hadn't survived 37 years in this world by ignoring warnings, even warnings from ghosts. Dominic didn't check the desk. In his world, children were not sources of truth. They were blank pages that enemies could write upon, innocent mouths that could be filled with poisonous lies. He had seen it before. Rivals using orphans to deliver false information, planting seeds of paranoia that grew into forests of destruction. His father's voice returned to him, rough and weathered like old leather. "Trust no one, Dominic, especially information from unexpected places. Your enemies will use anyone to destroy you. A priest, a beggar, a child. The more innocent the messenger, the more dangerous the message." Vincent Russo had died with those words still fresh on his lips. A bullet through the heart from a man he had called brother for 20 years. Dominic learned the lesson well. He pressed the intercom button. "Marcus. My office." Now, 2 minutes later, Marcus Cole walked through the door, 40 years old, broad shoulders, a face carved from years of loyalty and violence. He had followed Dominic for 15 years, saved his life 3 times, buried bodies without questions. If Dominic trusted anyone in this world, it was Marcus. "The housekeeper's girl," Dominic said, keeping his voice casual. "What do you know about her?" Marcus shrugged. "The orphan? Not much. Parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. No relatives wanted her. Mrs. Eleanor took her in out of pity. She does small chores around the mansion. Quiet kid. Keeps to herself. Has she caused any problems?" "None that I've heard." Marcus tilted his head slightly. "Why do you ask?" Dominic waved his hand dismissively. "She was lurking near my office earlier. Made me uncomfortable." Marcus chuckled. "She's 6 years old, boss. Probably just curious. Kids imagine things. See shadows that aren't there. Perhaps. The door opened again before Marcus could respond. Serena walked in, carrying a cup of coffee. Steam curled from the rim like gentle smoke. She wore a cream silk blouse that caught the light perfectly. Her smile was warm, her eyes were soft. "I thought you might need this," she said, setting the cup on his desk. Her fingers brushed his hand. A familiar touch, an intimate gesture. "You've been working so hard lately." Dominic studied her face, the curve of her lips, the flutter of her lashes, the way she tilted her head when she looked at him. Nothing. He saw nothing unusual. "Thank you," he said. Serena leaned down and kissed his cheek. "Don't stay up too late." She left with Marcus, their footsteps fading down the hallway. The door clicked shut. Dominic stared at the coffee, then at the space beneath his desk. The girl was lying. She had to be. But that night, lying beside Serena in their bed, Dominic couldn't sleep. Her breathing was soft and even, her body warm against his, the woman he would marry in 3 weeks. And yet, the girl's voice echoed in the darkness. "Under your desk. I saw Miss Serena put it there, at 3:00 a.m. Dominic slipped out of bed. He told himself it was nothing. He told himself he was being foolish. He told himself he would check the desk, find nothing, and finally put this ridiculous suspicion to rest. He walked down the corridor toward his office, barefoot, silent as a ghost. Just to prove the child wrong. Just to silence the doubt. The mansion was silent at 3:00 a.m. No footsteps, no voices. Only the distant hum of the grandfather clock in the main hall, counting seconds like a patient executioner. Dominic entered his office without turning on the lights. Moonlight spilled through the tall windows, casting silver shadows across the floor. He closed the door behind him and stood there for a moment, feeling foolish. A grown man, a boss of one of Chicago's most powerful families, crawling under his desk in the middle of the night because of something a 6-year-old said. Pathetic. He walked to his desk and lowered himself to his knees. The carpet was soft beneath him, expensive, Italian. He had chosen it himself 5 years ago when he took over this office from his father's corpse. His hand reached under the desk, fingers brushing against the smooth wood. Nothing. He almost laughed, almost stood up and walked away. Then his fingertips touched something else. Cold, small, rectangular. His heart stopped. Dominic pulled out a device the size of a matchbox. Black matte finish, military-grade adhesive tape securing it to the underside of the desk. No brand markings, no serial numbers. Professional equipment. His blood ran cold. With steady hands that betrayed none of his internal chaos, Dominic examined the device. A recording unit. High-end. The kind intelligence agencies used. The kind that cost more than most people earned in a year. He found the switch and turned it off. Then he pressed playback. His own voice filled the silence. "The shipment arrives Thursday. Pier 47. Contact is Rodriguez. Make sure the customs officer gets his payment before midnight or the whole thing falls apart." Dominic's stomach dropped. Last week. That conversation happened last week. With Marcus. In this very room. The recording continued. Names, locations, amounts. Every detail of his weapons operation laid bare in crystal-clear audio. Enough evidence to put him away for life. Enough information for his enemies to dismantle everything he had built. Enough ammunition to kill him, his allies, and everyone connected to his network. His hands began to shake. Not from fear, from rage, but even in his fury, the predator in him took control. Survival instincts honed over decades kicked into action. He rewound the device, placed it back exactly where he found it, pressing the tape firmly against the wood. Never let your enemy know you've discovered their trap. His father's final lesson. Dominic stood up slowly. His mind was racing, but his body remained perfectly still. A statue of controlled violence. Serena. The girl had said Serena, his fiancée, the woman sleeping in his bed right now. But he needed proof, real proof, not the words of a child. He pulled out his phone and dialed a number only 3 people in the world knew existed. Tony Mancini answered on the second ring. "I need you to access the backup camera system in my office," Dominic said quietly. "The one nobody knows about. Check yesterday afternoon. Around 4 o'clock. A pause. What am I looking for?" Dominic stared at the desk, at the invisible poison hidden beneath its surface. The face of someone who wants me dead. He hung up and stood alone in the darkness, thinking about the little girl with the dust rag. The orphan everyone overlooked. The ghost who moved through his house unseen. She had told the truth. A 6-year-old child had just saved his life. And somewhere in this mansion, a traitor was sleeping peacefully, believing their secret was still safe. Tony Mancini arrived at 4:00 a.m. with a laptop and a face that asked no questions. They sat in the basement, a room that didn't exist on any blueprint. Concrete walls, no windows, soundproof. Dominic had built it himself 3 years ago for moments exactly like this. Tony connected to the hidden camera system, a network of surveillance that Dominic had installed without telling anyone. Not Marcus, not Serena, not even his own mother before she died. Trust no one completely, not even the people you love. The footage loaded. Yesterday afternoon, 4:07 p.m. Dominic watched the screen with unblinking eyes. His office appeared in high definition. Empty, quiet, sunlight streaming through the windows. Then the door opened. Serena walked in. She was wearing the blue dress he had bought her last month, the one she said made her feel beautiful, the one she wore when she kissed him goodbye that morning. On screen, Serena paused at the doorway. Her eyes swept the room, left, right, up toward the ceiling corners, checking for cameras, checking for witnesses. She didn't find the hidden lens behind the smoke detector. Satisfied she was alone, Serena moved quickly, purposefully. She walked behind the desk, knelt down, and reached into her purse. The recorder emerged. Dominic watched her attach it with practiced precision. No hesitation, no fumbling. The movements of someone who had done this many times before. Professional. When she finished, Serena stood up and pulled out her phone. "It's done," she said to whoever answered. Her voice was clear through the camera's microphone. "He doesn't suspect anything." A pause while she listened. Then she smiled. The same smile she gave Dominic every morning. "After the wedding, we'll have everything we need. The weapons locations, the list of officials on his payroll, all of it." Another pause. "Marcus will handle the rest." Dominic stopped breathing. Marcus. The name hit him like a bullet to the chest. Marcus Cole. 15 years of loyalty. 3 times saving Dominic's life. Countless nights drinking together, laughing together, burying enemies together. Flashback. 5 years ago. Marcus taking a knife meant for Dominic's throat, blood everywhere. Marcus laughing through the pain, saying, "You owe me a bottle of whiskey, boss." Flashback. 10 years ago. Marcus holding the line when the Castellano family ambushed them on the south side. Fighting like a demon. Never retreating. Flashback. Last month. Marcus standing beside him at his father's grave, saying nothing, just being there. All of it. Lies. On the screen, Serena laughed softly at something the caller said. "He trusts me completely," she said. "Men are so predictable when they think with their hearts instead of their heads." She hung up and checked the recorder one final time. Then she left the office, closing the door gently behind her. The screen went dark. Dominic sat motionless. His face revealed nothing. No anger, no pain, no shock. Inside, something had changed. The part of him that loved Serena died quietly in that basement. The part that trusted Marcus rotted away like old wood. What remained was older, colder, the predator his father had raised him to be. He turned to Tony. "Delete the access logs. Erase any trace that we viewed this footage." Tony nodded and began typing. Dominic stood up slowly. His movements were calm, controlled, the movements of a man who had already decided exactly what he was going to do. "So," Tony said quietly, "what now?" Dominic looked at the frozen image of Serena's smile on the screen. "Now we hunt." His voice was ice. "They wanted to play this game with me. Fine, I'll play. But they forgot one thing." He turned toward the door. "I never lose." Morning light filled the mansion with deceptive warmth. Dominic found her on the stairs leading to the east wing. She was kneeling on the 3rd step, scrubbing the marble with a rag that had seen better days. Her small hands moved in circular motions, methodical, practiced, the hands of a child who had learned to work before she learned to play. She heard his footsteps and looked up. The moment their eyes met, her face went pale. She scrambled backward, pressing herself against the banister, making herself as small as possible. Fear, pure, undiluted fear. She thought he had come to punish her. Dominic stopped 3 steps below her. He could see her trembling, could see the way she clutched the wet rag against her chest like a shield, could see the tears already forming in the corners of her eyes. This child expected pain, expected cruelty, expected the world to hurt her because that was all it had ever done. Something shifted in Dominic's chest, something he didn't recognize. Slowly, deliberately, he sat down on the staircase, the cold marble pressed against his expensive suit. He positioned himself at her eye level, a king lowering himself before a peasant. He had never done this for anyone. "I checked," he said quietly. His voice was still cold, but the edge was gone. You were right. Lily blinked. Confusion replaced some of the fear. The recorder was there, Dominic continued. Exactly where you said. The girl stared at him. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Why did you tell me? He asked. You knew who I am. You knew what I could do to you if I thought you were lying. Why take that risk? Lily's grip on the rag loosened slightly. She looked down at her worn shoes before answering. I was cleaning the hallway, she whispered. I saw Miss Serena go into your office. The door was open a little. I looked through the crack. She paused, gathering courage. Mrs. Eleanor always says that hiding things in someone's room without telling them is wrong. It's what bad people do. Her voice grew even softer. And I didn't want you to get hurt. Dominic studied her face, searching for deception, searching for the telltale signs of a coached performer. He found nothing but sincerity. You're not afraid of me? He asked. I am afraid, Lily admitted. Her honesty was startling. Everyone is afraid of you, but Mrs. Eleanor says you're good to people who are loyal. She hesitated, then added in barely a whisper. And I wanted to be loyal to you. The words hung in the air between them. Loyalty. A 6-year-old orphan offering loyalty to a man who trusted no one. A child with nothing giving everything to someone who had everything but believed in nothing. Dominic was silent for a long moment. The grandfather clock ticked somewhere in the distance. You did the right thing, he finally said. The words felt strange on his tongue, unfamiliar. But from now on, you tell no one else about this. Not Mrs. Eleanor, not anyone. Do you understand? Lily nodded solemnly. Yes, sir. Dominic rose to his feet. He looked down at the small girl still pressed against the banister, watching him with those 2 old eyes. Yesterday she was invisible, a ghost, a piece of furniture. Today, she was something else entirely. He turned and walked away without another word, but at the top of the stairs, he paused. He didn't look back. What's your name? He asked. Lily, sir. Dominic nodded once. Then he was gone, leaving the girl alone on the staircase with her rag and her courage. And for the first time, he wondered if perhaps trust could come from the most unexpected places after all. The warehouse on the south side had been abandoned for 15 years. Rust ate through the metal walls. Pigeons nested in the broken rafters. The smell of decay hung heavy in the air. No one came here. No one remembered it existed, except Dominic and Tony Mancini. Tony was 65 years old. Silver hair cropped short, eyes that had seen 3 generations of Russo violence. He had served Dominic's father for 20 years before retiring, had taught Dominic how to shoot when he was 12, had carried Vincent Russo's coffin to the grave. If there was one man left in the world Dominic could trust, it was this one. They sat across from each other on rusted oil drums. A laptop glowed between them, playing the footage of Serena planting the recorder. Tony watched in silence. His weathered face revealed nothing. When it ended, he let out a long, slow breath. 15 years, he said. Marcus has been with you 15 years. I trained that boy myself. He shook his head. Who bought him? Who has that kind of reach? That's what I need to find out. Dominic's voice was flat. Serena isn't smart enough to plan this alone. Someone is pulling the strings. Someone with money. Someone with patience. Tony rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. What do you want to do? Nothing. Tony raised an eyebrow. Nothing visible, Dominic clarified. They think they're hunting me. They think I'm blind and stupid and in love. A cold smile crossed his face. I want them to keep thinking that. He stood up and paced slowly across the cracked concrete floor. No confrontation, no accusations. I continue treating Serena like my beloved fiancé. I continue trusting Marcus with important tasks. I change nothing. And meanwhile, we watch. We gather evidence. We find out who's behind this. Dominic turned to face Tony. They want information? Fine. I'll give Marcus information. False information. Locations that don't exist. Names that lead nowhere. Let them chase ghosts while I hunt them. Tony nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Turn their weapon against them. Exactly. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Dominic would become an actor in his own life. Every kiss with Serena would be a performance. Every conversation with Marcus would be a trap. Every smile would hide the predator waiting beneath. That night, Dominic returned to the mansion. Serena greeted him at the door with a warm embrace. I missed you today, she murmured against his chest. I missed you too, he replied, stroking her hair. The words tasted like ash. During dinner, Marcus reported on security arrangements for the upcoming wedding. Dominic listened attentively, nodding at appropriate moments, asking questions that showed trust. "I'm thinking about moving the main weapons cache," Dominic said casually. "Somewhere more secure. I'll need your help scouting locations." Marcus's eyes flickered with something. Interest. Hunger. "Of course, boss. Just say when." Dominic smiled. "After the wedding. No rush." That night, he lay beside Serena in their bed. Her body curved against his, warm and familiar. Her breathing slowed into the rhythm of sleep. Dominic stared at the ceiling. This woman had shared his bed for 2 years, had whispered love into his ear, had planned his death with the same lips that kissed him goodnight. And tomorrow, he would wake up and pretend none of it mattered. He would hold her, kiss her, tell her he loved her. The hardest role he had ever played, loving the woman who wanted him dead. Dominic spent 3 days watching. Not Serena, not Marcus. He watched Lily. The girl moved through the mansion like smoke. She dusted the library while Marcus discussed security with his men. She organized books in the study while Serena made phone calls. She polished silver in the dining room while guests shared secrets over wine. No one noticed her. Adults looked past children. Their eyes skipped over small bodies carrying rags and brooms. Servants were invisible. Child servants were ghosts. Lily saw everything, heard everything, and no one ever realized she was there. Dominic recognized a weapon when he saw one. He summoned Mrs. Eleanor to his office on the 4th day. The old housekeeper came quickly, smoothing her apron with nervous hands. "Sir, is something wrong?" "The girl," Dominic said casually. "Lily, tell me about her." Mrs. Eleanor's face softened with affection. "She's a good child, sir. Quiet, hardworking, never causes trouble. Her parents died in a car accident 2 years ago. She was 4. Mrs. Eleanor's voice grew heavy. "No relatives wanted her. They said she was bad luck. An orphan brings misfortune," they said. Bitterness crept into her tone. "So I took her in." Dominic nodded slowly. "Is she intelligent?" "Very much so, sir. She doesn't speak often, but she sees everything." Mrs. Eleanor paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Sometimes I think she notices things that adults miss completely." That was exactly what Dominic wanted to hear. He dismissed the housekeeper and made his preparations. The next evening, he found Lily in the storage room, organizing cleaning supplies on the lowest shelf. She looked up when he entered, surprise flickering across her face. Dominic closed the door behind him. "I have something for you," he said. He pulled a small box from his pocket and handed it to her. Lily opened it carefully, as if expecting something dangerous inside. A button, black, ordinary, the size of her thumbnail. She looked up at him, confused. "It's a camera," Dominic explained. He knelt down to her level, pointing at the tiny device. "You attach it to your dress, here, where a button would normally go. It records everything you see and hear. No sound, no light, no one will ever know." Lily's eyes widened. "This button," Dominic continued, "turns it on. This one turns it off. Every night, you remove this part." He showed her the hidden memory card. "And you bring it to me. Understand?" Lily stared at the device with wonder. Then she looked up at him, a spark of excitement breaking through her usual quiet demeanor. "Like a spy?" she whispered. "Like in the movies Mrs. Eleanor lets me watch sometimes?" Dominic almost smiled. "Almost." "Yes," he said. "Like a spy. You are my spy now. My eyes and ears in this house." He held her gaze firmly. "But no one can know. This is a secret between us. Only us." Lily nodded solemnly. The weight of responsibility settled onto her small shoulders, and instead of crumbling beneath it, she stood straighter. "I won't tell anyone," she promised. "Not even Mrs. Eleanor." Dominic watched as she carefully attached the camera to her dress. Her small fingers worked with surprising precision. When she finished, she looked down at herself, then back up at him, her chest puffed out slightly. Pride. For perhaps the first time in her short, difficult life, someone had given her a purpose. Someone had trusted her with something important. Someone had seen her. Dominic stood up. "Report to me every night, after everyone sleeps." "Yes, sir." He turned to leave, then paused at the door. "Lily." "Yes, sir. You're doing something very brave. Remember that." The smile that spread across her face was small but genuine, and Dominic realized, with some surprise, that he meant every word. The smell of garlic and rosemary filled the dining room. Dominic paused in the doorway, watching Serena arrange plates on the table. Candles flickered between crystal glasses. Soft music played from somewhere unseen. The table was set for two, intimate, romantic, calculated. "You cooked," Dominic said, keeping his voice light. Serena turned and smiled, that perfect smile. The one he now knew was rehearsed. "I wanted to surprise you." She walked toward him, wrapping her arms around his neck. "We've both been so busy with the wedding preparations. I thought we deserved a quiet evening together." Dominic kissed her forehead. The gesture felt mechanical, hollow. "It smells wonderful." They sat across from each other. The food was excellent. Serena had clearly practiced this meal. Every flavor precise, every presentation perfect. Another performance. "I've been thinking about the honeymoon," Serena said, twirling pasta around her fork. "Italy would be beautiful this time of year. Tuscany, the countryside, just the two of us." Dominic nodded. "Sounds perfect. And after we get back..." She reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers were warm, soft, deadly. "I want you to relax more. You work too hard. You carry too much weight alone. What do you suggest? Delegate." She squeezed his hand gently. "Let Marcus handle more responsibility. He's been with you 15 years. He saved your life 3 times. If you can't trust him, who can you trust?" Dominic forced himself to smile. Inside, rage burned like acid. They were trying to isolate him, push him away from his own empire, make Marcus indispensable while they slowly stripped away his power. "You think Marcus can handle more?" he asked carefully. "I know he can." Serena's eyes sparkled with false sincerity. "He's loyal to you. He would die for you. Let him carry some of the burden." Dominic raised his wine glass. "Perhaps you're right," Serena beamed. The conversation shifted to wedding details. Guest lists, flower arrangements, the band she wanted for the reception. Dominic listened and responded appropriately, playing the role of excited groom. Then she asked the question he had been waiting for. "Any new business developments I should know about?" Her tone was casual, too casual. "I like knowing what's happening in your world," Dominic pretended to consider. "Actually, yes. New shipment coming in from Mexico next month. Bigger than anything we've handled before. I'll need Marcus to oversee the logistics." Serena's eyes flickered. Interest. Hunger. "That sounds important," she said softly. "It is." She would report this tonight. He knew it with absolute certainty. The false information would flow up the chain to whoever was pulling her strings. Let them chase shadows. After dinner, they moved to the bedroom. Serena kissed him goodnight, her lips soft against his. She curled against his body, her breathing gradually slowing into sleep, or what she wanted him to believe was sleep. Dominic kept his eyes closed, his breathing even, every muscle relaxed. 15 minutes passed. Then he heard it, the soft rustle of sheets, the faint glow of a phone screen illuminating the darkness. Serena's fingers tapped silently on the keyboard, sending a message to her masters, reporting the lies Dominic had fed her. When she finally put the phone away, Dominic remained motionless. He listened to her breathing settle again, felt her body relax against his. This woman, this beautiful, treacherous woman, she would sleep peacefully tonight, dreaming of his destruction, and he would lie awake, counting the days until her reckoning. The loneliest place in the world, Dominic realized, was lying beside someone who wanted you dead. 5 days passed. Every night, after the mansion fell silent, Lily crept to Dominic's office. She moved like a shadow through darkened hallways, avoiding the floorboards that creaked, slipping past doors where guards dozed in chairs. A 6-year-old ghost carrying secrets that could topple empires. Dominic waited for her in the basement room, the one that didn't exist. Each night, she handed him the tiny memory card with trembling fingers. Each night, he watched what she had captured. The footage was remarkable. Lily had a gift for being invisible. She dusted shelves while conversations happened around her. She organized books while secrets spilled from careless mouths. She polished silver while conspirators forgot she existed. On the 3rd night, the camera caught something damning. The living room. Afternoon sunlight streaming through tall windows. Serena and Marcus stood close together, speaking in hushed voices. After the wedding, Serena said, "We give him 1 week. Let him enjoy the honeymoon. Then the accident happens." Marcus nodded slowly. "Castellano promised I'll be second in command when this is over. Dominic's time has passed. He just doesn't know it yet." Serena laughed softly, a cruel sound that Dominic had never heard from her before. "He suspects nothing. Men are so predictable. They think with their hearts instead of their heads." She touched Marcus's arm. "Soon, all of this will be ours. Dominic watched the footage 3 times. His face remained stone. On the 5th night, the camera captured something even more valuable. Marcus in the garden, alone, phone pressed to his ear. "Mr. Castellano," he said, glancing around to ensure privacy. "Everything proceeds as planned. The main weapons cache location will be confirmed after the wedding. Dominic trusts me completely." A pause while he listened. "Yes, sir. Serena has him wrapped around her finger. He won't see it coming until it's too late." Dominic stopped the playback. Castellano. Victor Castellano. The name burned through his mind like wildfire. The Castellano family had been rivals of the Russo Empire for 3 decades. Victor had tried to destroy Dominic's father, had sent assassins, had bribed officials, had waged a shadow war that never ended. And now, the old snake had found a way inside, through Serena, through Marcus, through love and loyalty turned to poison. The entire picture became clear. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a carefully orchestrated takeover planned over years. That night, Lily came to him as usual. She handed over the memory card and stood quietly, watching him with those ancient eyes. "The camera recorded many things," she said softly, "but I don't understand what they're talking about." Dominic looked at her. This small, brave child who had no idea the danger she had walked into. "You don't need to understand," he said. His voice was gentler than he expected. "You just need to keep recording. You're helping me more than anyone else in this house." Lily's face brightened slightly at the praise, and then, without thinking, Dominic reached out and touched her head. His hand rested on her hair for just a moment, a gesture of affection, of gratitude. He couldn't remember the last time he had touched anyone with kindness. Lily looked up at him, surprise flickering across her face. Then something else, something that looked almost like hope. "I'll keep watching," she whispered. "I promise." Dominic pulled his hand back, unsettled by his own actions. "Go to bed," he said quietly. "Be careful." She nodded and slipped away into the darkness. Dominic sat alone in the basement, staring at the frozen image of Marcus on the screen. Castellano thought he was winning. He had no idea the war had already begun. The invitation arrived on a Tuesday. Cream-colored envelope, elegant handwriting, no return address. Inside, a single card with words that made Dominic's blood run cold. A peaceful discussion between old families. "Tomorrow, Bella Notte Restaurant, 8 p.m. Come alone if you wish, or bring your men. It matters little. V.C. Victor Castellano." The snake had decided to show his face. Dominic met Tony in the basement that night, showing him the invitation. "It's a trap," Tony said immediately. "Has to be, or he's so confident his plan is working that he wants to gloat." Dominic studied the card. "Either way, I need to see him. I need to look into his eyes and measure exactly how much he thinks he's won." Tony shook his head. "This is dangerous. Everything is dangerous." Dominic tucked the card into his pocket. "But knowledge is power. And right now, I need to know my enemy." The next evening, Dominic prepared to leave. Marcus appeared at the front door, ready to accompany him. His hand rested on the gun beneath his jacket. "I'm coming with you," Marcus said. "You shouldn't meet Castellano without protection." Dominic shook his head. "I need you here. Serena is alone. Stay and make sure nothing happens to her." Something flickered across Marcus's face. Disappointment, frustration, the subtle crack in a mask worn too long. "Of course, boss." His voice was steady, but his jaw tightened. "I'll keep her safe." "I'm sure you will," Dominic thought bitterly. The restaurant was neutral territory. Old-world Italian elegance. White tablecloths, candles flickering in crystal holders. The kind of place where families had celebrated weddings and planned murders for generations. Victor Castellano sat at the corner table. He was 52 years old, silver hair swept back from a weathered face, eyes that cut like broken glass. He wore a tailored suit that cost more than most people earned in a year, the man who had tried to destroy the Russo family for 3 decades. Dominic sat across from him. His guards positioned themselves at nearby tables, watching everything. "Dominic," Victor smiled like a wolf greeting a lamb. "Thank you for accepting my invitation. You didn't give me much choice." Victor chuckled. "Straight to business. I respect that." He swirled wine in his glass slowly. "I wanted to meet the man who will soon marry the lovely Serena. She's quite a woman." Dominic kept his face blank. "She is. Beautiful, intelligent, ambitious." Victor's eyes glittered with amusement. A man could lose himself in a woman like that. Forget to watch his back while he's watching her instead. Dominic's hands remained steady on the table. Is that a threat? A warning? Between professionals, Victor leaned forward slightly. Every empire has weaknesses, Dominic. Sometimes the weakness sleeps in your bed. Sometimes it guards your door. He paused meaningfully. Sometimes it's the person you trust most in the world. The words hung in the air like smoke. Victor was boasting, practically confessing, so certain of his victory that he couldn't resist showing off. "Thank you for the advice," Dominic said quietly. "I'll remember it." Victor laughed. "I'm sure you will, but remembering and acting are different things, as men in love rarely see clearly." He raised his glass in mock salute. "Enjoy your wedding, Dominic. Enjoy your honeymoon. Enjoy every moment while you still can." Dominic stood up slowly. "This conversation is over. For now." Victor's smile never wavered. "We'll speak again soon. Under very different circumstances." Dominic walked out without looking back. In the car, surrounded by his guards, he stared out at the passing city lights. Castellano thought he had already won. Thought the game was over. Thought Dominic was a blind fool walking toward his own grave. The old man had just signed his death warrant, and he didn't even know it. Marcus was waiting when Dominic returned from the restaurant. He stood in the foyer with practiced concern painted across his face. His shoulders were tense. His eyes searched Dominic's expression for clues. "Boss." Marcus stepped forward quickly. "How did it go? What did Castellano want?" Dominic removed his coat slowly. He handed it to a servant without looking. "Nothing important," he said. "The old man wanted to talk peace. Pretend we could be friends." "And you believe him?" "Of course not." Marcus nodded eagerly. "Did he threaten you? Should we increase security? I can double the guards at the warehouse. Add more men to your detail." Dominic watched him carefully. The eagerness, the rapid questions, the way his fingers tapped nervously against his thigh, the slight shift of his eyes when he mentioned loyalty. How had Dominic missed these signs for 15 years? "Castellano is testing us," Dominic said, walking toward his office. Marcus followed like a shadow. "He thinks we're weak, thinks we don't see him circling. We should strike first." Marcus's voice carried urgency. "Before he moves against us." Patience. Dominic sat behind his desk, the same desk where the recorder still waited beneath the surface. "I have a different plan." Marcus leaned forward. "What plan?" Dominic pretended to consider whether to share. He let the silence stretch. "I'm thinking about relocating our main weapons cache," he said finally. "Somewhere more secure. Somewhere Castellano would never expect." Marcus's reaction was immediate. Too immediate. "Where?" His voice sharpened. "When? I'll need to coordinate security. Arrange transport. Plan the logistics. Nothing is decided yet." Dominic waved his hand dismissively. "After the wedding, we'll discuss the details then." Something flickered in Marcus's eyes. Disappointment. Frustration. The desperation of a man who needed information he wasn't getting. "Of course, boss." Marcus forced a smile. "Whatever you think is best." "I know." Marcus left the office, closing the door behind him. Dominic sat motionless for several minutes. Then he picked up his secure phone and called Tony. "Watch Marcus tonight," he said quietly. "Tell me who he contacts." 2 hours later, Tony reported back. 10 minutes after your conversation, Marcus made a call from the garden. Burner phone. We couldn't trace the number, but our listening device caught his voice." "What did he say?" "He told someone that you're planning to move the weapons cache. Location unknown. Timing after the wedding." Tony paused. He was frustrated. "Said you weren't giving him details." Dominic smiled. A cold, predatory expression that never reached his eyes. "Perfect. Boss, don't you see?" Dominic leaned back in his chair. Marcus just confirmed everything. He reported to Castellano within minutes of learning something he thought was valuable. "So what do? We feed him more." Dominic's voice was ice. "Every piece of false information we give Marcus goes straight to Castellano. We control what they know. We control what they believe. We control their entire operation without them realizing it." Tony was silent for a moment. Then he chuckled softly. "You're turning their own spy into your weapon." "Exactly." Dominic ended the call and stared at the ceiling. They thought they were hunting him, thought they were pulling strings, thought they were the predators and he was the prey. But Dominic Russo had been raised by wolves, and wolves didn't run from shadows. They became them. Serena noticed on a Thursday afternoon. She was standing in the library with Marcus, discussing details that should never be spoken aloud. The shipment timeline, the contact names, the plan for after the honeymoon, and there, in the corner of the room, a small figure with a dust rag wiped the same bookshelf for the third time. "Lily, that child," Serena whispered, her eyes narrowing. She's always around. Marcus glanced at the girl, then shrugged. She's the housekeeper's orphan. She cleans. It's what she does. No. Serena shook her head slowly. Every time we talk, she appears somewhere nearby. The hallway. The next room. Always within earshot. You're being paranoid. Serena turned to face him fully. Her voice dropped lower. I don't like the way Dominic looks at her lately. Have you noticed? He pays attention to her now. Speaks to her. That never happened before. Marcus considered this. She's 6 years old. Maybe Dominic's getting soft. Thinking about family, children. He paused. It's nothing. Is it? Serena's jaw tightened. Or is it something we're missing? In the adjacent room, separated only by a door left slightly ajar, Lily heard every word. Her heart pounded against her ribs. Her hands trembled around the wet rag she was using to clean the window. The camera on her dress recorded everything. They suspected her. The woman with the cold smile and the man with the false loyalty were talking about her. Watching her, wondering, terror clawed at her chest. But Lily had learned long ago how to survive, how to be invisible, how to swallow fear and keep moving. She continued wiping the window. Slow, methodical strokes. The same motion she had performed 1,000 times. Nothing unusual, nothing suspicious. Just a child doing her job. When Serena and Marcus finally left the library, Lily allowed herself one shaky breath. Then she finished her work and slipped away through the servants' corridors. That night, she found Dominic in the basement room. Her hands shook as she handed him the memory card. Her voice trembled when she spoke. They talked about me, she whispered. Miss Serena thinks I'm always nearby. She doesn't like how you look at me now. Dominic watched the footage in silence. His face revealed nothing as Serena's suspicious words filled the room. When it ended, he sat very still. Lily's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Should I stop? They might catch me. I don't want to make trouble for you. Dominic looked at her, really looked at her. This tiny girl, this orphan nobody wanted. She had walked into the lion's den every day, carrying a camera that could get her killed. She had gathered evidence that grown men would have been too afraid to collect, and now she was asking if she should continue risking her life for him. Do you want to stop? He asked quietly. Lily shook her head fiercely. No. They're bad people. They want to hurt you. Her small hands clenched into fists. I don't want them to win. Something shifted in Dominic's chest. Something unfamiliar. Protective. He had never cared about anyone's safety except his own. Had never worried about anyone's well-being. Had never felt the weight of responsibility for another person's life. Until now. You continue, he said finally. But you must be more careful. Don't linger when they're talking. Clean faster. Move away sooner. Make yourself less noticeable. Lily nodded eagerly. I will. I promise. Dominic reached out and placed his hand gently on her shoulder. If anything feels wrong, he said, if you sense danger, you stop immediately. You find Mrs. Eleanor. You stay safe. Do you understand? Lily's eyes widened at his touch, at the concern in his voice. Yes, sir. Good. He released her. Now go to bed. We have work to do tomorrow. She slipped away into the shadows, leaving Dominic alone with his thoughts. He stared at the empty doorway for a long time. A 6-year-old child was braver than any soldier he had ever commanded, and for the first time in his life, Dominic Russo felt afraid. Not for himself, for her. 2 weeks. 14 days until Dominic Russo would marry the woman who planned to murder him. Serena accelerated her preparations with terrifying efficiency. Wedding planners swarmed the mansion. Florists delivered sample arrangements. Caterers presented menu options. Every detail was perfect. Every detail was a countdown to his death. Darling, Serena said one morning, her voice sweet as honey, I need access to some family documents, legal papers for the marriage certificate, property records. The lawyers say it's standard procedure. Dominic kept his expression neutral. What kind of documents? Just formalities. She waved her hand dismissively. Asset declarations, business holdings. Illinois law requires certain disclosures before marriage. He knew exactly what she wanted. Under Illinois law, a spouse had legal rights to marital assets. If Dominic died after the wedding, Serena would inherit a significant portion of his empire, legally, cleanly, without anyone questioning her grief. I'll have my attorney prepare everything, Dominic said smoothly. Serena kissed his cheek. You're so good to me. That night, Lily delivered footage that confirmed his worst fears. The video showed Serena and Marcus in the garden pavilion. Evening shadows concealed them from distant eyes, but Lily had positioned herself perfectly, pretending to collect fallen leaves nearby. The honeymoon is booked, Serena said. Tuscany. That villa in the mountains. Castellano has people in the area. Marcus nodded. The road to the villa is narrow. Cliffside. A car accident would be. Tragic but believable. Serena smiled. The grieving widow returns home. Devastated. Heartbroken. She laughed softly. I'll wear black beautifully. And after? You take over operations. Gradually, discreetly, within a year, everything transfers to Castellano. She touched Marcus's arm. You'll be his second in command. Isn't that what he promised? It is. Then we both get what we want. The footage ended. Dominic sat in the basement with Tony, staring at the frozen image of Serena's smile. The wedding is the deadline, Tony said grimly. After that, they move immediately. You won't survive the honeymoon. Dominic nodded slowly. I know, so we cancel. Expose them. Strike first. No, Tony frowned. No? If I cancel the wedding, they'll know I discovered their plan. They'll disappear. Regroup. Come at me another way, another time. Dominic stood and paced the concrete floor. I need to end this completely. Serena, Marcus, Castellano, all of them, at once. How? Dominic stopped pacing. His eyes were cold steel. They want the wedding to be my funeral. I'll make it theirs instead. Tony was silent for a long moment. That's extremely dangerous. Everything is dangerous. Dominic turned to face him, but they'll be confident, relaxed, celebrating their victory before they've won it. That's when predators are most vulnerable. You're talking about turning your own wedding into a battlefield. Yes. Tony rubbed his jaw thoughtfully. What about Castellano? He'll have men there. I want him there personally. I want to look into his eyes when he realizes he's lost. And Marcus? Serena? Dominic's voice dropped to ice. They'll learn what happens to those who betray the Russo family. He walked to the table and spread out a blank sheet of paper. 2 weeks, he said. We have 2 weeks to plan a wedding and a war simultaneously. Tony moved to stand beside him. Where do we start? Dominic picked up a pen. We start with the guest list, and we make sure every enemy I have walks through those doors believing they've already won. The countdown had begun. The meetings happened in shadows, abandoned warehouses, empty parking garages, safe houses that hadn't been used in decades. Dominic never met anyone at the mansion, never used his regular phone, never traveled the same route twice. Marcus noticed nothing. Tony Mancini moved like a ghost through Chicago's underworld, reaching out to men who had served Vincent Russo before Dominic was born. Old soldiers, forgotten warriors, men whose loyalty had been forged in blood and never broken. 12 answered the call. They gathered in the basement of a condemned church on the south side. Rain hammered the broken windows. Candles flickered in the darkness. 12 faces, weathered by decades of violence, watched Dominic with patient eyes. You know why I've called you, Dominic said. You've heard the rumors. Now you'll hear the truth. He told them everything. Serena, Marcus, Castellano, the recorder, the plan to murder him during his honeymoon. The men listened in silence. Their expressions hardened with each revelation. My wedding will be in 10 days, Dominic continued. It will proceed exactly as planned. The flowers, the music, the ceremony, everything will appear normal. He paused. But the mansion will become a trap. Tony stepped forward with a blueprint of the estate. He pointed to positions throughout the building. You will be everywhere, dressed as waiters, kitchen staff, security personnel, even guests. His finger traced the layout. Every exit will be covered, every hallway monitored. When the moment comes, no one escapes. One of the older men spoke. What about Marcus? He controls your security. Marcus will coordinate his own funeral, Dominic replied coldly. He'll position his men exactly where we want them. He won't realize half of them answer to me now. Another question came from the back. Castellano? I'm inviting him personally. Silence fell. Tony shook his head slowly. That's madness. You want the head of the enemy family at your wedding? I want him to watch his plan crumble in front of his eyes. Dominic's voice was ice. I want to see his face when he realizes he walked into my trap instead of me walking into his. And if he brings armed men, he will. And they'll be surrounded before they know what's happening. Dominic looked around the room. Every ally family in Chicago will be there. Every boss who supports the Russo name. They'll witness the betrayal and the justice that follows. The men exchanged glances. Slowly, they nodded. Tony raised another concern. The girl, Lily, Castellano's people have seen her around. If they suspect she's involved, Dominic's jaw tightened. He had thought about this for days. Lily knew too much. had seen too much. If Castellano discovered her role, she would become a target. The night of the wedding, Dominic said firmly, Lily stays in her room, with Mrs. Eleanor. 2 of our best men guard the door. She doesn't come out for any reason, and if something goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Dominic's eyes swept the room. We have 10 days to prepare. Every detail must be perfect. Every position must be covered. Every contingency must be planned. He stood taller. They think they're attending my execution. They'll discover it's their own. The men rose as one. Silent acknowledgments. Fists pressed to hearts. Soldiers ready for war. Tony remained behind after the others left. 10 days, he said quietly. Are you sure about this? Dominic stared into the candlelight. I've never been more sure of anything. The battlefield was being prepared, and only one side would walk away. The mansion hummed with activity. Florists arranged cascades of white roses in the grand ballroom. Caterers tested silver warming trays in the kitchen. Musicians adjusted equipment on the temporary stage. Servants polished every surface until it gleamed. Tomorrow, Dominic Russo would marry Serena Mitchell. Tomorrow, someone would die. Serena moved through the chaos like a queen surveying her kingdom. She wore a cream silk robe, her hair pinned loosely, her face radiant with practiced joy. The centerpieces need to be higher, she instructed the florist. And more candles. I want everything to glow. She checked the seating arrangements, tasted the wine selections, examined the wedding cake with critical eyes. The perfect bride preparing for her perfect day. The perfect performance. Marcus coordinated security with military precision. He positioned guards at every entrance, assigned patrol routes, tested communication equipment. He never suspected that half of his men had already sworn loyalty to Dominic. As evening fell, Dominic found Lily in the servants' quarters. She was sitting on her small bed, still wearing the dress with the camera button. Mrs. Eleanor was helping another staff member downstairs. For these few minutes, they were alone. Lily. She looked up quickly. Something in his voice made her stand. Dominic closed the door behind him and knelt down to her level. Eye to eye, equal to equal. Tomorrow, he said quietly, you stay in this room, with Mrs. Eleanor. You don't come out, for any reason. Lily's face fell. But I can help. I can watch and record, no. His voice was firm but gentle. You've done enough. More than enough. Without you, I would already be dead. He placed his hands on her small shoulders. Tomorrow will be dangerous. Things will happen that you shouldn't see. I need to know you're safe. Do you understand? Lily's eyes searched his face. She saw something there that she had never seen before. Fear. Not fear of enemies. Not fear of death. Fear of losing her. Will you be okay? She whispered. Is something bad going to happen? Dominic was silent for a moment. How could he explain war to a 6-year-old? How could he describe the violence that would erupt in his home? Tomorrow, he said finally, the bad people will be punished, but there will be chaos, noise, confusion. He squeezed her shoulders gently. I need you to promise me you'll stay in this room, no matter what you hear. Lily's lower lip trembled slightly, but she didn't cry. I promise, she said. Dominic looked at her for a long moment. This small, brave child who had changed everything, who had seen through lies that blinded everyone else, who had trusted him when she had every reason to be afraid. Something ached in his chest. He stood up slowly, his hand lingering on her head for just a moment. Get some sleep, he said softly. Everything will be different after tomorrow. Lily nodded, her eyes still fixed on his face. Dominic turned and walked to the door. He paused with his hand on the handle. Lily. Yes, sir? He didn't turn around. Couldn't let her see his face. Thank you. Then he was gone. That night, Dominic sat alone in his office. The mansion had finally fallen silent. The preparations were complete. The trap was set. He stared out the window at the dark Chicago skyline. Somewhere in this city, Castellano was sleeping peacefully, dreaming of victory, counting the hours until his enemies were destroyed. Somewhere in this mansion, Serena was resting beside an empty pillow, rehearsing her widow's tears. Somewhere in this house, Marcus was reviewing his security plans, never knowing he had positioned his men exactly where Dominic wanted them. And somewhere in the servants' quarters, a 6-year-old girl was lying awake, worried about a man she had come to trust. Dominic closed his eyes. Tomorrow, he whispered to the darkness. Everything ends, one way or another. The wedding was magnificent. White roses cascaded from crystal chandeliers. Hundreds of candles flickered like captured stars. A string quartet played softly as 300 guests filled the grand ballroom, dressed in silk and diamonds. Serena descended the staircase in a gown of pure white, lace sleeves, pearl buttons, a train that flowed behind her like a river of snow. She smiled at Dominic with eyes full of practiced love. He stood at the altar in a black tuxedo, watching his executioner walk toward him. Victor Castellano sat in the third row, guest of honor. His silver hair gleamed under the lights. His smile never wavered. The spider watching flies stumble into his web. Marcus positioned himself near the main entrance, earpiece in place, hand resting casually near his concealed weapon, the loyal guardian, the trusted lieutenant, the traitor coordinating his master's murder. The ceremony began. Words were spoken. Vows were exchanged. Dominic's voice remained steady as he promised to love and cherish the woman who planned to bury him. "Do you take this woman to be your wife?" "I do." The ring slid onto Serena's finger. Cold metal. Colder lies. "You may kiss the bride." Dominic leaned forward. His lips touched hers. The crowd applauded. The most painful moment of his life. Music swelled. Champagne flowed. Guests surrounded them with congratulations and laughter. Dominic played his role perfectly, smiling, shaking hands, accepting embraces from people who had no idea they were attending a battlefield. Everything was proceeding according to plan, until Tony appeared at his side. The old man's face was gray. His hand trembled slightly as he gripped Dominic's elbow. "We have a problem," Tony whispered. "Upstairs. Now." Dominic excused himself smoothly. "Business call. Just a moment." He followed Tony through the servants' corridor, away from watching eyes. They reached Lily's room. The door hung open. Inside, Mrs. Eleanor lay crumpled on the floor, unconscious. Blood trickled from a wound on her forehead. Lily was gone. Dominic's heart stopped. "2 men in waiter uniforms," Tony said rapidly. "They bypassed our guards, took the girl through the service entrance. A van was waiting." "How?" Dominic's voice was ice. "We had men everywhere. Castellano has people we didn't know about. He must have suspected something." Tony's jaw tightened. He knew about the girl. Serena must have told him. Dominic stared at the empty bed. The small pillow still held the impression of Lily's head. She had kept her promise. She had stayed in her room, and they had taken her anyway. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. A text message. "The child is with me. Come to Pier 7 at midnight. Alone, or she dies slowly." Below the words, a photo. Lily, bound, gagged, eyes wide with terror. A gun pressed against her temple. Something inside Dominic shattered. All his plans, all his careful preparations, all his strategies for exposing Serena and destroying Castellano. None of it mattered now. Only one thing mattered. "Sir," Tony said urgently. "The wedding, the trap. What do we do?" Dominic looked at him. His eyes had changed. The calculating predator was gone. Something more dangerous had taken its place. A father protecting his child. "Everything changes," Dominic said quietly. "Forget the plan. Forget Serena. Forget everything except one objective, which is..." Dominic turned toward the stairs, his fists clenched, his jaw set like iron. "We get Lily back." Pier 7 rose from the darkness like a skeleton. Rusted shipping containers, abandoned cranes, broken concrete stretching toward black water. The industrial graveyard had been Castellano territory for decades. Dominic walked alone into the open space. But he was not alone. Hidden in the shadows of surrounding buildings, Tony's men waited, 12 soldiers positioned on rooftops, behind containers, inside empty warehouses, invisible, patient, ready. Floodlights snapped on. Victor Castellano stood in the center of the pier, surrounded by armed guards. 20 men, maybe more, all watching, all armed, and there, in front of him, knelt Lily. Her small body trembled. Rope bound her wrists behind her back. A gag silenced her mouth. Tears streamed down her cheeks, but her eyes found Dominic across the distance. And in them, he saw something extraordinary. Trust. Even now, even here, she believed he would save her. Castellano smiled like a wolf. "Surprised, Dominic?" His voice echoed across the empty pier. "I always have backup plans. Your fiancé told me about the child weeks ago, the orphan who watches everything. The little shadow." Dominic stopped 15 feet away. His face revealed nothing. "Let her go. This is between us." Castellano laughed. "Between us? No, no. This is about power, about legacy, about taking everything your father built and making it mine." He stroked Lily's hair with mock tenderness. She flinched away. "This child matters to you," Castellano continued. I saw how you looked at her at the mansion, how you protected her, the great Dominic Russo, attached to an orphan nobody wanted. His grip tightened in Lily's hair. She whimpered through the gag. Sign over your empire tonight. Every warehouse, every contact, every operation, or I put a bullet in her skull and make you watch. Dominic's hands hung loose at his sides. His voice remained calm. And if I refuse? Then she dies screaming. Silence stretched across the pier. Lily's eyes never left Dominic's face. Then Dominic moved his hand. A tiny gesture. 2 fingers. A signal only Tony would recognize. Everything happened at once. Floodlights exploded from the surrounding buildings. Headlights blazed from hidden vehicles. Tony's men emerged from every shadow, weapons raised, surrounding Castellano's forces in seconds. Castellano's confident smile vanished. What you thought I came alone, Dominic said quietly. You forgot who you were dealing with. Gunfire erupted. The pier became chaos. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like lightning. Bullets ricocheted off metal containers. Men screamed. Bodies fell. Dominic didn't hesitate. He sprinted toward Lily. Castellano grabbed the girl, pulling her up as a shield, pressing his gun against her temple. Stay back, he screamed. I'll kill her. Dominic kept moving. A bullet tore past his ear. Another ripped through his left shoulder. Pain exploded through his body. Blood soaked his white wedding shirt. He didn't stop. Castellano fired wildly. Missed. Dominic crashed into him, knocking the old man sideways. His body covered Lily completely as they hit the concrete. More bullets flew overhead. Dominic wrapped himself around the small girl, shielding her with every part of his body. His back, his shoulders, his arms, human flesh protecting human treasure. Lily pressed her face against his chest, sobbing through the gag. I've got you, Dominic whispered through gritted teeth. I've got you. Blood dripped from his shoulder onto her dress, but he held her tighter, and he didn't let go. 15 minutes of hell. Gunfire echoed across the pier like thunder. Muzzle flashes illuminated the darkness in staccato bursts. Men fell screaming. Blood pooled on concrete. The smell of gunpowder choked the air. Castellano's men fought desperately, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Tony's soldiers had positioned themselves perfectly. Every escape route was blocked. Every counterattack was anticipated. One by one, Castellano's guards collapsed. Dominic lay bleeding on the ground, still wrapped around Lily. A soldier reached them, pulling the girl gently from his arms. Get her out of here, Dominic gasped. Now, the soldier lifted Lily and ran toward a waiting vehicle. She looked back over his shoulder, her eyes fixed on Dominic's bloody form, her face streaked with tears. Safe. She was safe. Dominic forced himself to his feet. His left shoulder screamed with pain. Blood soaked his shirt, dripping down his arm. But he stood. Across the pier, Castellano was running. The old man scrambled between containers, his elegant suit torn, his silver hair wild. His guards were dead or dying. His empire was crumbling. Everything he had built over 30 years was collapsing in a single night. Tony appeared from the shadows, blocking his path. Castellano stumbled backward. Another soldier emerged behind him, then another. He was surrounded, cornered. Dominic walked toward him slowly. Each step sent agony through his wounded shoulder. He didn't care. Castellano pressed against a rusted container. His eyes darted frantically. The arrogant smile was gone. In its place was something Dominic had never seen from him before. Fear. 30 years, Dominic said quietly. His voice was ice. You hunted my family for 30 years, sent assassins, bribed officials, planted spies in my bed. Castellano raised his hands. Wait. We can negotiate. I have money, connections. We can share Chicago, split the territories. Both families can prosper. You kidnapped a 6-year-old girl. Castellano's mouth opened, closed. You put a gun to her head. Dominic stepped closer. You threatened to kill a child to destroy me. Business, Castellano stammered. It was just business. Leverage. I wouldn't have actually. There is no negotiation. Dominic raised his gun. There is no mercy. The shot echoed across the water. Victor Castellano crumpled to the ground. His eyes stared emptily at the dark sky. 30 years of ambition ended in a single moment. The pier fell silent. Tony approached slowly. It's over. Dominic lowered his weapon. Not yet. They returned to the mansion an hour later. The wedding guests had fled. The grand ballroom stood empty. Champagne glasses abandoned. Flowers wilting. The celebration had become a crime scene. Serena and Marcus knelt in the center of the room. Dominic's men surrounded them, weapons drawn, faces hard. Serena looked up when Dominic entered. Mascara streaked her cheeks. Her white wedding dress was stained with spilled wine. Her hands trembled in their restraints. "Dominic, please," she sobbed. "I can explain." "They forced me. Castellano threatened my family. I had no choice. 2 years. His voice silenced her. 2 years you lay beside me, kissed me, told me you loved me. He stared at her without emotion. 2 years you planned my murder. I never wanted to hurt you. I swear. Enough. Marcus remained silent. His head hung low. He knew there were no words that could save him. 15 years of betrayal couldn't be explained away. Dominic turned his back on them both. "Take them," he said to Tony. "I don't want to see them again." His men moved forward. Serena screamed. Marcus said nothing. Dominic walked away without looking back. Justice had been served. 1 week passed. The mansion stood quiet now. Not the tense silence of danger lurking. Not the heavy stillness of secrets being kept. This was the silence of peace. The calm that came after storms had finally passed. Dominic sat alone in his office. His left shoulder was wrapped in clean white bandages. The bullet had torn through muscle but missed bone. The doctors said he was lucky. He didn't feel lucky. He felt tired, empty, like a man who had fought a war and won, but couldn't remember why he started fighting. Afternoon sunlight streamed through the tall windows, the same windows where Serena once stood, smiling her false smile. The same desk where the recorder had waited like a coiled snake. Everything looked the same. Everything had changed. A knock came at the door. "Enter." Tony Mancini walked in, carrying a folder. His weathered face showed the exhaustion of the past week. Neither of them had slept much. "Final report," Tony said, setting the folder on the desk. "Castellano's organization has completely collapsed. His lieutenants are dead or scattered. The territories are ours now. All of Chicago belongs to the Russo family." Dominic nodded slowly. "And the others?" "Serena and Marcus have been dealt with." Tony's voice carried no emotion. "According to our laws. As you ordered." The words hung in the air. 2 years of lies. 15 years of betrayal. Both ended in the same way. "The Allied families send their congratulations," Tony continued. "They're impressed. Grateful. Your reputation has never been stronger." Dominic stared at the folder without opening it. He should feel victorious, triumphant. He had exposed traitors, destroyed his enemies, and secured his empire. Everything a boss was supposed to accomplish. But all he felt was hollow. "Is there anything else?" he asked. Tony hesitated. "Mrs. Eleanor is outside. The girl wants to see you." Something shifted in Dominic's chest, a crack in the emptiness. "Send her in." Tony left. A moment later, the door opened again. Lily stood in the doorway. She looked smaller than he remembered. Fragile. Her face was pale, and faint shadows circled her eyes. The trauma of that night still clung to her like a shadow, but her eyes were bright, alive, looking at him with the same trust she had shown on the pier. "Come in," Dominic said softly. Lily walked slowly across the room, her gaze fixed on the bandages visible beneath his shirt. "Does it hurt?" she asked quietly. Dominic looked down at his shoulder. The wound throbbed constantly, a permanent reminder of that night, not as much as losing you would have. Lily stopped a few feet from his chair. Her small hands twisted together nervously. "Are you angry at me?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "Because I got caught? Because they took me?" The question pierced something deep inside him. Dominic pushed back from his desk. He pulled a chair close and sat down, bringing himself to her level, eye to eye, the way he had that first morning on the staircase. "Never," he said firmly. "I could never be angry at you, but they used me against you. They took you because I failed to protect you." His voice cracked slightly. "That was my fault. Not yours. Never yours." Lily's lower lip trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. "I was so scared," she whispered. "But I knew you would come. I knew you wouldn't leave me. Never." The word came out fierce, absolute. "I will never leave you." Something broke inside Lily. She rushed forward and threw her small arms around Dominic's neck. Her body pressed against his chest. Her tears soaked through his shirt. Dominic froze. He couldn't remember the last time anyone had hugged him. Couldn't remember the last time he had allowed someone this close without suspicion, without calculation, without fear. Slowly, his arms rose. His hands settled gently on her small back. He held her carefully, as if she might break, as if she were the most precious thing in the world. Because she was. Lily sobbed against his chest. All the fear, all the trauma, all the terror of that night poured out of her in waves. And Dominic held her through every moment. His wounded shoulder screamed with pain. He didn't care. For the first time in his life, Dominic Russo understood what it meant to love someone more than himself. This story teaches us that truth often comes from the most unexpected places. A 6-year-old orphan saw what powerful adults missed. She had no wealth, no status, no influence, but she had courage, she had honesty, and she had the bravery to speak when silence would have been safer. Sometimes the people we overlook are the ones who see us most clearly. Sometimes the smallest voice carries the most important message. And sometimes, even hearts hardened by years of violence can learn to love again, through trust, through loyalty, through the innocent eyes of a child. In our world today, we often judge people by their titles, their wealth, their appearances. But this story reminds us that true worth lies deeper. It lies in integrity, in courage, in the willingness to stand up for what is right, even when we are afraid. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Share it with someone who needs to hear that courage comes in all sizes. Your support helps us bring you more meaningful stories every day. We would love to hear from you in the comments below. How did this story make you feel? Have you ever met someone who seemed invisible but saw more than anyone else? Have you experienced moments when trust came from unexpected places? Please share your thoughts with us. Every comment, every story, every reflection from your heart means the world to us. We wish everyone watching this video good health, happiness, and peace in your daily life. May you always find courage when you need it most, and may you always see the worth in those the world overlooks. Thank you for being with us today. Goodbye, and we will see you in the next video.